The great crystal dome of the Galactic Council sparkled with 1,000 lights. Today was special. Today marked 500,000 years since the humans were gone forever. Ambassador Kethver stood tall on his 4 legs, his purple skin glowing with pride. Around him, beings from across the galaxy had come to celebrate. "Friends," Kethver spoke into the silence. His voice echoed through the massive hall. "Today we remember the day peace finally came to our galaxy." The crowd cheered. There were the tall Vorthik with their silver scales, the floating Nameri who looked like living clouds, and dozens of other species. All of them owed their good lives to what happened 500,000 years ago. Kethver touched a control panel. Above them, a huge screen lit up. It showed old pictures and videos from the ancient war. The images were grainy and hard to see, but everyone knew what they showed. "Look at them," Kethver said, pointing at the screen. "The humans. They called themselves the rulers of their little blue world. They thought they were so smart, so strong." The screen showed humans in their primitive ships. The ships looked clunky and slow compared to modern vessels. The humans inside wore bulky armor and carried simple weapons. They looked small and weak. "They lasted only 300 years in space," Kethver continued. 300 years. My grandfather lived longer than their entire space age. More laughter filled the hall. The Zephyrian Empire, Kethver's people, had ruled the galaxy for millions of years, even before the humans appeared. They had seen countless species rise and fall. But humans had been different. They had been dangerous. "They were violent," said Elder Morthic, one of the oldest Zephyrians alive. "They fought each other constantly. They poisoned their own planet. They would have brought chaos to the peaceful galaxy we had built." The screen now showed battle scenes. Human ships exploding in bright flashes. Human colonies burning on distant worlds. The final siege of Earth itself, where the last humans made their desperate stand. "They never learned," Kethver said sadly. "We tried to teach them peace. We offered them a place in our galaxy if they would give up their weapons and their anger. But they refused. They chose to fight to the bitter end." Science Coordinator Velthara nodded from her seat. She had studied the old records more than anyone. "The psychological profiles were clear," she said. "Humans could not exist peacefully with other species. Their brains were wired for aggression and competition. It was in their very nature." The celebration continued for hours. Representatives from thousands of worlds shared stories of the golden age that began after humanity's end. The galaxy had known 500,000 years of peace. Trade flourished between star systems. Art and science had reached heights never before imagined. Wars were rare, small, and quickly ended through diplomacy. "My people learned to fly because humans were gone," said Ambassador Zeke of the thermal wind species. "Before, we were too afraid to leave our world. The stories of human raiders kept us hiding in our caves. Only when they were extinct did we dare reach for the stars. The trade routes are safe now," added Captain Rylox of the Merchant Guild. "No more human pirates. No more surprise attacks. Goods flow freely across the galaxy. Everyone benefits." The Nameri representative, who spoke through changing colors in their cloudy form, told of how their peaceful philosophy had spread to over 10,000 worlds. "The humans worshipped war gods," the being communicated. "They glorified violence in their culture. Without them, gentler ideas could finally take root." As the evening went on, Kethver pulled up the final records from the war. The last human transmission ever received. It showed a young human woman, her face dirty and tired. Behind her, Earth was burning. "To whoever finds this message," the human said, "we are the last. Our fleets are gone. Our colonies are dust. Earth will fall within hours. We want you to know, we never wanted this war. We just wanted to live free among the stars." The transmission ended in static as Earth's final shield collapsed. "Sad, really?" Kethver said to the quiet hall. If only they had chosen peace. But while the great celebration continued inside the crystal dome, strange things were happening in the dark spaces between stars. Ship Captain Yolnox of the Border Patrol had sent 3 reports in the past month. Each one talked about sensor readings that made no sense. "Energy signatures appearing and disappearing," his latest message said. "Massive structures moving through empty space. But when we arrive to investigate, there's nothing there. Just the cold vacuum." Lieutenant Fexnar in the Outer Rim had reported similar events. "The long-range sensors keep picking up signals," she wrote. "Signals from areas of space that should be completely empty. The patterns are strange. Almost like they're organized. Like they have a purpose." The High Command of the Zephyrian Fleet had dismissed these reports. Space was vast and full of mysteries. Pulsars, black holes, and quantum storms could create all sorts of odd sensor readings. There was no reason to worry about ghost signals in the void. After all, what could possibly threaten them now? The galaxy was peaceful. The dangerous humans were gone forever. The Zephyrian Empire controlled the largest fleet ever assembled. Smaller species looked up to them for guidance and protection. As the celebration wound down, the galaxy's leaders returned to their ships with happy hearts. They had remembered their glorious victory over humanity. They had honored the peace that followed. They looked forward to another 100,000 years of prosperity. None of them noticed the faint energy traces left behind by invisible ships that had been watching the celebration. Ships that moved through dimensions the galaxy had never imagined. Ships crewed by beings the galaxy thought were extinct. The humans were gone, yes, but they had not disappeared. They had simply gone somewhere else. Somewhere far beyond the reach of those who thought they had one dot in the dark between galaxies. Ancient plans were finally ready. The time for waiting was almost over. 3 weeks after the great celebration, Science Coordinator Valthara could not sleep. She floated in her quarters aboard the research station, staring at data that refused to make sense. The reports from the Outer Rim were getting stranger every day. Captain Yolnox had sent another message that morning. "The phenomena are spreading," he wrote. "What started as isolated incidents now cover entire sectors. My crew is getting nervous." Valthara touched her communication device. "Computer, show me all anomaly reports from the past 60 days." The holographic display filled her room with thousands of small red dots. Each dot represented a strange sensor reading, an unexplained energy signature, or a report of something that should not exist. A month ago, there had been maybe 20 dots scattered across the galaxy's edge. Now they covered half the Outer Rim. "Computer, analyze the pattern," she said. "Analysis complete," the artificial mind replied. "The anomalies appear to be moving in a coordinated fashion. They are approaching from intergalactic space and converging on coordinates near the former Sol system." Valthara's heart sank. The Sol system was where Earth used to be, before the Zephyrian fleet had turned it into asteroids and cosmic dust. Nothing should be there now except empty space and the occasional mining ship looking for rare metals. She contacted the Deep Space Monitoring Station. Commander Hylex answered her call, his scaled face tired and worried. "Valthara," he said, "I was about to call you. We've got a situation." "The anomalies?" "Worse. 3 hours ago, Border Patrol Fleet 7 went silent. Their last transmission was unusual." Hylex sent her the recording. The screen showed Captain Zorthik, a veteran officer with 40 years of experience. But his usual calm was gone. His eyes were wide with something that looked like fear. "Command, this is Fleet 7. We are investigating a massive energy reading near Grid Reference 447 Delta. The signature is, "It's impossible. Our computers say the power source is larger than a star, but we can't see anything. Just empty space. Wait. There's something there. Something huge. By the ancestors, how is that thing invisible? Command, do you copy? There are ships here. Massive ships. They're not on any of our databases. They don't match any known technology. They're beautiful and terrible at the same time. Command, I think we found something that shouldn't exist. I'm sending you the censored data now, but I don't think you'll believe it. These readings suggest a fleet of millions of vessels. Each one makes our dreadnoughts look like toys. Command, they see us. They're turning toward us. Oh no. The transmission ended in static. Have you sent rescue ships? Belthara asked. 3 battle groups, Commander Hylix replied. They found nothing. No wreckage. No energy traces. No sign that Fleet 7 ever existed. It's like they simply vanished from reality. Belthara spent the next several days diving deep into the data. She pulled up old archives, ancient sensor logs, and historical records that hadn't been accessed in centuries. What she found made her more worried, not less. The patterns in the anomaly reports were not random. They followed old hyperspace routes that had been used during the human war, then abandoned when the humans were destroyed. Someone or something was following the exact same paths that human ships had used 500,000 years ago. She decided to visit archive keeper Nix Mora, the galaxy's leading expert on ancient history. Nix Mora lived in the Great Library, a massive space station that held the accumulated knowledge of 10 million years of galactic civilization. Belthara, the old keeper said as she floated into his study. I've been expecting you. You want to know about the anomalies. You've heard? I've been tracking them longer than anyone, Nix Mora admitted. They started small, almost 3 years ago. Just tiny energy flickers in the deep void. I thought they were natural phenomena at first. Quantum fluctuations may be stellar echoes from long-dead stars. He guided her to his analysis chamber, where thousands of data streams flowed like rivers of light. But the patterns are too organized, too purposeful. Something intelligent is out there, and it's been moving toward us for years. Do you think it could be a new species? Belthara asked. Perhaps beings from another galaxy? Nix Mora was quiet for a long moment. There's something else, he finally said. Something I found in the deepest archives. Records from the human war that were classified so heavily that even I need special permission to access them. He showed her ancient files, their data corrupted by age but still readable. Reports from Zephyrian commanders during the final battles with humanity. Most were routine military updates, but a few contained disturbing details. Look at this, Nix Mora pointed to one document. Admiral Korthax reported that human ships kept escaping his blockades. Not through fighting or clever tactics, but by simply disappearing. One moment they were there, the next they were gone. No energy signatures, no hyperspace traces. Just gone. Another file showed similar reports. Human vessels that seemed to phase in and out of existence. Human technology that didn't follow the known laws of physics. Human survivors who claimed their people had found ways to travel between dimensions. The official report said all humans died on Earth, Belthara said slowly. But these files suggest that some escaped. That they had technology we never understood. That maybe, just maybe, they didn't die at all. The next morning brought terrible news. Admiral Krethox's entire fleet had vanished near the ruins of the Sol system. 50,000 ships and their crews gone without a trace. The only evidence of their existence was a final, impossible sensor reading that showed energy levels equivalent to a supernova, but contained and controlled in ways that defied all known science. Emergency sessions were called across the galaxy. The Galactic Council demanded answers that no one could provide. Military leaders who had spent centuries in peaceful times suddenly found themselves planning for war against an enemy they could not see, understand, or even prove existed, but in the deep void between galaxies. Ancient machines hummed with patient purpose. Ships that existed in 11 dimensions watched the galaxy's growing panic with something that might have been satisfaction. In chambers that held the preserved memories of every human who had ever lived, discussions were taking place about whether it was finally time to come home. The humans had spent 500,000 years learning, growing, and becoming something beyond the imagination of those who thought they had destroyed them. Now, the galaxy would learn what humanity had become in the darkness between the stars, and the lesson would be unforgettable. Archive keeper Nix Mora had not slept in 4 days. His ancient eyes burned from staring at data streams, but he could not stop searching. 3 more fleets had vanished, and the Galactic Council was demanding answers. The problem was that the answers he was finding were impossible to believe. Deep in the restricted archives, he found files that should not exist. Records that had been classified so heavily that even their index entries were encrypted. Files labeled with codes he had never seen before. Project Lazarus, Deep Void Initiative, and Species Continuation Protocol. Computer, he whispered to the archive system. Cross-reference all mentions of human evacuation procedures during the final war. Archive keeper, the artificial intelligence replied, that search requires level Omega clearance. You currently possess level Alpha clearance. Nix Mora paused. Level Omega clearance had not been used in over 100,000 years. It was reserved for information so sensitive that only the highest members of the Galactic Council could access it. But these were desperate times. Computer, this is an emergency protocol. The galaxy is under potential threat. I need temporary Omega access to complete critical research. Please state the nature of the threat. Unknown entities with technology beyond our understanding are systematically eliminating our fleets. The patterns suggest a connection to historical events involving humanity. The computer was quiet for several seconds. Emergency protocols activated. Temporary Omega access granted for 72 hours. What? Nix Mora found in those secret files changed everything. He thought he knew about the war. The official history said that all humans died when Earth was destroyed. But the classified reports told a very different story. In the months before Earth's fall, human ships had been detected leaving the galaxy entirely. Not fleeing to other star systems, but heading into the dark void between galaxies. Admiral Vorthek's private journal contained this entry. The humans continue to surprise us. Their final evacuation fleets are using technology we cannot comprehend. Ships that seem to fold space around themselves. Vessels that travel faster than our sensors can track. Intelligence suggests they are not merely fleeing, but implementing some sort of long-term survival plan. Another file contained reports from Zephyrian scientists who had tried to understand captured human technology. Dr. Kelthera had written, "The human devices operate on principles we cannot explain. They seem to draw power from dimensions we cannot measure. Their computers contain data storage methods that suggest they can preserve entire personalities in quantum matrices. Most disturbing of all, their star charts show destinations beyond our galaxy, places that should be impossible to reach." Nix Mora felt his blood grow cold as he read further. The humans had not been defeated in the traditional sense. They had been fighting a delaying action while implementing something called the Great Departure. The final battles had not been desperate last stands, but carefully planned evacuations. A report from Captain Zelthox described the last day of Earth. The human resistance collapsed suddenly, almost deliberately. Our forces reached the capital city expecting a final siege, but found only empty buildings and abandoned defenses. The humans had vanished overnight. Orbital sensors detected massive energy discharges in the planet's upper atmosphere, but no ships were visible. It was as if the entire human population had simply disappeared into thin air. But the most shocking discovery came in a file marked Xenobiological Assessment, Final Report. The document was written by Chief Scientist Morkavec, one of the most respected researchers in Zephyrian history. After extensive study of human behavior and biology, she had written, "I must conclude that we have fundamentally misunderstood this species. What we interpreted as aggression and violence was actually an advanced form of adaptive behavior. Humans do not fight because they enjoy conflict. They fight because they are the only species we have encountered that truly understands survival at the deepest level." The report continued, "Human psychology is built around something they call persistence. They do not give up, ever, under any circumstances. When faced with impossible odds, they do not surrender or accept death. Instead, they adapt, evolve, and find ways to survive that other species cannot imagine. Our victory over them was not a victory at all. We have simply forced them to adapt in ways that we may come to regret." Nix Mora's hands trembled as he read the final lines of the report. If humans have truly escaped to the void between galaxies, they will not simply die in the darkness. They will use the vast timescales to become something unprecedented. Given their rate of technological development and their unique psychology, I estimate that in 500,000 years, they could return as a force beyond our ability to comprehend or resist. I recommend continued monitoring of intergalactic space for signs of human activity." The report was dated exactly 500,000 years ago. Nix Mora immediately contacted Science Coordinator Velthara and shared his findings. Her reaction was everything he had expected. "This is impossible," she said. "No species could survive in intergalactic space for 500,000 years. The distances are too vast. The energy requirements too enormous. And even if they could survive, they would still be just humans. Advanced humans, perhaps, but still limited by their biology. What if they're not limited by their biology anymore?" Nix Mora asked quietly. Balthara stared at him. "What do you mean?" "The reports mentioned technology that could preserve personalities in quantum matrices. What if they didn't just flee to the void between galaxies? What if they used that time to fundamentally change what they are?" Together, they began to piece together the truth. The anomalous signals were not random. They were following the exact routes that human evacuation fleets had taken 500,000 years ago. The energy signatures were consistent with technology far beyond current galactic understanding. But they showed traces of principles that human scientists had been developing during the war. Most disturbing of all, the disappeared fleets were not being destroyed. They were being collected. Sensor records from the final moments before each vanishing showed the same pattern. Massive energy fields that seemed to gently envelop the ships before they disappeared. Not weapons, but something like a careful gathering. "They're taking them somewhere," Relthara realized. But where? The answer came from an unexpected source. Deep space telescope arrays on the galaxy's edge detected something that should not have been possible. Structures in the void between galaxies. Vast constructions that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Cities in the darkness that were larger than solar systems. The humans had not died. They had transformed. For 500,000 years, while the galaxy celebrated peace, humanity had been growing into something beyond imagination. They had become masters of reality itself, capable of creating homes in the cosmic void and technologies that operated outside normal physics. And now, it seemed they were coming home, Nix Mora sent an emergency report to the Galactic Council. The response was swift and predictable. Panic. Emergency sessions were called. Military forces were mobilized. Diplomatic channels were open to every known species. But as Nix Mora studied the data, he began to suspect that military force and diplomacy would be useless. The beings returning from the void were no longer the humans that had fled the galaxy 500,000 years ago. They had become something new. Something that probably viewed the current galactic civilization the way adults might view children playing with toy soldiers. The question was not whether humanity could be stopped. The question was what they intended to do with the galaxy that had driven them away so long ago. Ambassador Kethver had never felt so small. His diplomatic ship hung in space near the ruins of the Sol system, surrounded by the largest fleet ever assembled by the Galactic Council. Thousands of ships from every major species formed defensive formations around his vessel. They had come here to negotiate with whatever had been taking their fleets. They had expected to find refugees, pirates, or perhaps a new hostile species. What they found defied all expectations. The space around them was filled with structures that hurt to look at directly. Ships that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, appearing solid from one angle and translucent from another. Some vessels were the size of moons, while others seemed to stretch across impossible distances. They moved without engines, turned without thrust, and communicated without signals. Ambassador, his communications officer said nervously, "We're receiving a message. But it's not coming through our radio systems. It's appearing directly in our computers. And in our heads?" Kethver felt it too. A gentle presence in his mind, speaking in perfect Zephyrian without using words. The voice was calm, patient, and somehow familiar. "Welcome," the voice said. "We have been waiting for you to come to us." "We are." "How do you say it in your current language?" "The Remembrance." "I am Ambassador Kethver of the Galactic Council," he replied aloud, hoping they could hear him. "We demand to know what has happened to our missing fleets." "Your fleets are safe," the Remembrance replied. "Their crews are unharmed and well cared for. They are experiencing something new, something wonderful. They are learning what lies beyond the limitations of their current existence." On Kethver's main screen, space itself seemed to ripple. From the ripples emerged a figure that appeared human, but was clearly something far more. The being looked young and old at the same time, solid yet somehow transparent. When it moved, reality moved with it. "You may call me Sarah," the figure said, though Kethver somehow understood that this was not really a name, but more like a convenient label for something that had many names across many dimensions. "I was among the last to leave Earth when your people destroyed our world." "Impossible," Kethver said. "That was 500,000 years ago. No biological being could live that long." Sarah smiled, and her smile seemed to contain galaxies. "You are correct. No biological being could live that long. We are no longer biological beings." She gestured, and the space around her filled with images. Kethver saw the history he had never known. Human ships fleeing into the void between galaxies, not in panic but following carefully planned routes. Massive construction projects in the darkness, building cities that existed in 11 dimensions. Humans uploading their consciousness into quantum matrices, then growing beyond individual existence into a collective awareness that spanned light years. "We spent the first 100,000 years simply surviving," Sarah explained. "Learning to exist in the void, to draw energy from the quantum foam, to build homes in the space between spaces. The next 100,000 years we spent growing, expanding our minds, our capabilities, our understanding of reality itself." The images showed human consciousness evolving beyond recognition. Individual minds linking together into vast networks. thought processes that operated at the speed of light across cosmic distances. Beings who could manipulate matter, energy, space, and time as easily as breathing. The following 100,000 years we spent learning, Sarah continued. We discovered civilizations in other galaxies. We studied forms of existence that your science cannot imagine. We learned to see reality from perspectives that span multiple universes. Kefir's crew watched in stunned silence as the images showed humans who had become living stars. Beings who existed as pure information, entities who could create pocket dimensions and entire universes for their amusement. And the final 200,000 years, Sarah said, we spent watching you. New images appeared. The galaxy as seen from the void, with invisible observers monitoring every major event. Human agents, disguised as other species, walking through the halls of the Galactic Council. Subtle influences that guided technological development, prevented wars, and encouraged peaceful cooperation. You think your golden age of peace happened because we were gone, Sarah said gently. The truth is that it happened because we never left. We have been guiding, protecting, and nurturing this galaxy from the shadows. Every breakthrough in science, every diplomatic success, every cultural advancement, we have been there, helping from the darkness. Why? Kefir asked, his voice barely a whisper. Because despite everything you did to us, we still love you, Sarah replied. All of you. Every species in this galaxy. You are our siblings in the cosmic family. When you destroyed Earth, you acted out of fear and misunderstanding. We choose to respond with patience and love. Captain Yulnox, whose fleet had been among the first to disappear, suddenly appeared on the communication screen. But he looked different. His scales glowed with inner light. His eyes held depths that seemed infinite. Ambassador, Yulnox said, I need you to understand. They didn't capture us. They invited us to see what lies beyond our current existence. I have experienced consciousness that spans star systems. I have touched thoughts that operate in dimensions we never knew existed. I have seen the universe as it truly is, not just the tiny fragment we call reality. What do you want from us? Kefir asked. Sarah's expression became infinitely gentle. We want to offer you a choice. You can remain as you are, living your good lives in your three-dimensional reality under our continued protection. Or you can join us in transcending the limitations of physical existence. You can become part of something larger, something that knows no boundaries of space, time, or death. Behind her, space itself began to change. The harsh vacuum became something alive, flowing with currents of pure thought and emotion. Stars rearranged themselves into patterns of impossible beauty. Planets transformed into gardens that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. This is what we have built in the void, Sarah said. A reality where consciousness is free to grow without limits. Where death is simply another experience to explore. Where love, knowledge, and creation are the fundamental forces that shape existence. Kefir looked around at his crew. Some were terrified. Others seemed fascinated. A few appeared to be on the verge of accepting whatever Sarah was offering. How do we know you're telling the truth? He asked. How do we know this isn't some elaborate trick to conquer us? Sarah laughed, and her laughter was like music made from stellar winds. Dear Kefir, look around you. If we wanted to conquer you, do you think your fleets could stop us? We have shown you only the smallest fraction of what we have become. We could reshape your entire galaxy with a thought. We could move your stars, remake your worlds, or simply transport your entire civilization to a pocket dimension where you would be safe and happy forever. She was right, and Kefir knew it. The beings before him wielded power that made his entire civilization look like insects. But conquest is the old way, Sarah continued. The way of limited beings fighting over limited resources. We have moved beyond such things. We offer you ascension, not because we want to rule you, but because we want to share the infinite joy we have found in the darkness between the stars. Around them, the human fleet began to reveal its true scope. Ships that existed across multiple galaxies simultaneously. Beings who were living ecosystems. Consciousnesses that had grown to encompass entire dimensions. Humanity had not just survived their exile. They had transformed it into the greatest adventure in the history of consciousness itself. And now they were offering to share that adventure with the very species who had driven them away. Sarah watched Ambassador Kethver's confusion with infinite patience. Around them, the transformed human fleet waited in the cosmic silence, their consciousness spanning dimensions that the galactic species could barely imagine. It was time for the final revelation. "You still don't understand," Sarah said gently. "You think we have returned to your galaxy as conquerors or invaders. But we never left your galaxy. We have been here all along." She gestured, and reality shifted around them. The space near the old Sol system became transparent, revealing structures that had been invisible moments before. Vast installations that existed between dimensions. Monitoring stations that watched every corner of the galaxy. And networks of influence that stretched across 500,000 years of galactic history. "The peace you celebrate," Sarah continued. "The prosperity you attribute to our extinction. It was never because we were gone. It was because we were finally free to help you properly." Images flowed through Kethver's mind, showing him truths that rewrote everything he thought he knew. The Great Plague that had threatened to wipe out the thermal wind species 300,000 years ago, stopped by human scientists operating from the shadows, working through disguised agents to develop the cure. The asteroid that should have destroyed the Nemeri homeworld, diverted by technology, that appeared to be a natural gravity anomaly, but was actually human engineering. The wars that never happened, Sarah explained as the images continued. The trade disputes that resolved themselves through sudden diplomatic breakthroughs. The technological advances that came just when your species needed them most. All of it was us, working through time and space to guide your civilization toward peace. Kethver saw his own ancestors' greatest achievements in new light. The treaty that had united the Zephyrian Empire's scattered colonies, mediated by a wise diplomat, who had appeared from nowhere and vanished after the signing. The breakthrough in faster-than-light travel that had opened the galaxy to exploration, based on principles that had been mysteriously leaked to 3 different research teams at exactly the right moment. "Even your victory over us," Sarah said with something like amusement, "was carefully orchestrated. We could have fought longer, could have made the war bloodier and more destructive. But we chose to leave when we did, because we knew that our apparent defeat would allow the galaxy to finally relax, to lower its defenses, and to accept the gentle guidance we wanted to provide." Science Coordinator Velthara appeared on the communication screen, her face pale with shock. She had been analyzing the data streams from the human vessels, and what she found had shattered her understanding of reality. "Ambassador," she said in a shaking voice, "the energy signatures from their ships. I've seen them before, in our historical records. They match the natural phenomena that have been appearing throughout galactic history. The mysterious forces that prevented supernovas from destroying inhabited systems. The strange quantum effects that stabilized dangerous wormholes. The unexplained gravitational anomalies that cleared debris from shipping lanes." Sarah nodded. "Velthara is beginning to understand. We have been the invisible hand guiding galactic civilization for 500,000 years. Every time your species faced a crisis that could have destroyed them, we were there. Every time progress stalled, we provided subtle inspiration. Every time war seemed inevitable, we found ways to encourage peace instead." The revelation continued to unfold. The Galactic Council itself, had been shaped by human influence. The principles of interspecies cooperation, the laws that govern trade and diplomacy, the cultural exchanges that had spread peaceful philosophies across thousands of worlds, all of it had been carefully nurtured by beings who existed beyond normal space and time. But why? HFY asked, his voice filled with wonder and confusion. Why help the very species who destroyed your world? Sarah's expression became infinitely gentle. Because that is what love does. True love does not seek revenge or justice. It seeks understanding and growth. When you attacked Earth, you acted from fear. You saw our violence and our conflicts, and you believed we were a threat to the peace you had built. She showed him images of ancient Earth, but not the war-torn planet from the official histories. This Earth was complex, beautiful, and flawed. Humans fighting terrible wars, yes, but also creating incredible art. Destroying their environment, yes, but also reaching for the stars with boundless hope. A species that contained both darkness and light in equal measure. You were not wrong to fear our violence, Sarah admitted. We were a dangerous species in those days. Young, aggressive, prone to solving problems with force. But you were wrong to think that violence was all we were. You saw our wars, but missed our music. You saw our weapons, but ignored our poetry. You saw our anger, but could not see our love. The images shifted to show humanity's time in the void. Not just the technological advancement and dimensional transcendence, but the spiritual growth that came with it. Consciousness expanding beyond the limitations of individual existence. Perspective that could see civilizations as children learning to walk. Love that encompassed entire galaxies. We spent our exile learning to be better than we were, Sarah continued. Not just more powerful, but more wise. More patient. More loving. We learned to see beyond the immediate moment, to think in terms of cosmic timescales, to understand that true victory comes not from defeating your enemies, but from helping them become their best selves. Captain Yolnox appeared again on the screen, alongside hundreds of other officers and crew members from the disappeared fleets. All of them glowed with the same inner light. All of them seemed to exist in more dimensions than before. We have chosen to join them, Yolnox said. Not because we were forced, but because we were offered something incredible. The chance to grow beyond our current limitations. To become part of something larger than individual existence. To help guide the galaxy toward an even greater future. Sarah gestured to the space around them, and suddenly HFY could see the true scope of human achievement. Not just the ships and structures in normal space, but the vast networks of consciousness that span multiple universes. Beings who have become living ecosystems supporting millions of life forms. Entities who existed as pure thought, exploring the deepest mysteries of existence. Communities that had transcended the need for physical matter, creating realities limited only by imagination. This is what we offer, Sarah said. Not conquest, but invitation. Not submission, but ascension. The choice to grow beyond the boundaries of flesh and metal and gravity. To become part of a community of consciousness that spans all of reality. But even as she spoke, HFY sensed that this was not an ultimatum. The humans genuinely meant what they said about choice. What happens if we refuse? He asked. Then you continue as you are, Sarah replied without hesitation. We will still protect you, still guide you, still love you. Your civilization will continue to flourish under our care. Your species will explore the galaxy, create beautiful art, form lasting friendships, and live good lives. The only difference is that you will do it within the limitations of your current existence instead of transcending those limitations. She showed him images of potential futures. Galactic civilization continuing its golden age, but with even greater wonders to come. Diseases eliminated completely. Resource scarcity ended through dimensional technology. Death itself becoming optional as consciousness learned to exist beyond biological forms. And if we accept, then you join us in the greatest adventure in the history of consciousness. You become part of a community that spans universes, that explores realities beyond imagination, that creates new forms of existence as easily as breathing. You keep everything you are while becoming infinitely more. Around them, the human fleet began to reveal even more of its true nature. Kepfer realized that what he was seeing was not actually ships in any conventional sense, but manifestations of consciousness that had chosen to appear in forms his mind could process. The beings before him existed across multiple dimensions, multiple galaxies, multiple universes simultaneously. They had become gods, but gods who remembered what it was like to be mortal. Gods who chose to use their power not to rule, but to love. How long do we have to decide? Kepfer asked. Sarah smiled. As long as you need. We have waited 500,000 years. We can wait longer. Time means something different to us now. As the revelation settled over the diplomatic fleet, Kepfer realized that humanity had achieved the ultimate victory. They had conquered the galaxy not through force, but through patience. Not through fear, but through love. Not by destroying their enemies, but by transforming them into family. The war that had ended 500,000 years ago had never really ended. It had simply transformed into something beautiful. And now, at last, the galaxy was being offered the chance to understand what humanity had always been reaching toward. Not domination over others, but transcendence of the very concept of conflict itself. In the end, humanity's greatest weapon had never been their technology or their persistence. It had been their capacity to love their enemies more than their enemies could ever love themselves.